Morning and welcome to this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsythe. Good morning, Manitoba. Hopefully everyone is having a wonderful Monday morning so far, wherever you guys are, either if you're at home, at school, at work, or on the road. We thank you for joining us on this edition of the show. Today, got two guests joining me. First up is going to be Harry Siemens on the Farm Report. He comes on the show today to update us on what's been going on in agriculture and the agriculture community since the last time that we've talked. And then later on, we got another guest joining the show in a pre-recorded interview. But first up, Harry's going to join us, and we're going to roll the intro first. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe. You know what it's time to do, Manitoba. It's time to rise and shine here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. And of course, as I said in the intro just a few moments ago, Harry Siemens, our guest on the Farm Report, the man who is the Farm Report, joins us now. We're going to bring him in just a sec. Just going to let this thing roll here. And here he is, Harry Siemens, on this Monday morning, June 14th here. Harry, how are you doing since the last time that we talked? I know you're on GOB this weekend talking about some agriculture. Just how you been doing since the last time we talked?
You know what? Just keep plugging away. Watching the weather go up and down and sideways. And of course, the big topic for us as agriculture people and farmers has to be the rains that we got the last week, going back. And so, the crops were in survival mode. And you know what? In some cases, the crops may not be far from survival mode right now, but for the time being, they've got moisture. We're going to need more soon, but we're not in charge of that, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But you know what? It's been good.
Yeah, that's great. And of course, always nice to get that rain, especially when the crops are in survival mode, like you've been saying. Just you had a chance to talk about that with Kathy KK Kennedy on CJOB on Saturday morning. Can you dive into just some of the stuff that you were able to talk about with her? Some of the stuff you talked about, I heard, was like about the weather and some other stuff. Just take us into your conversation with her a bit.
Well, the conversation was basically because of the rain. She gave me a call and says, Harry, can you come on? Because just a week before, I had talked about how dry it was, not with Kathy, but with Clay Young. And so it changed in a big hurry. The weekend before, it was also we had twisters. We had a number of twisters. We had a twister on a Hutter Red colony in Saskatchewan that destroyed a number of buildings. We had three twisters. One, my good friend Ian Smith, up at Argyle, and Charlie Kaler up at Kleefeld, and on and on. We had buildings destroyed. But those people, they got rain with those twisters, and they were quite happy to see those buildings go because the rain is worth a lot more. Years ago, when I was farming, I farmed back in the late 50s, early 60s. Combines maybe were $10,000. Today, a combine can cost you upwards of $1 million. Then, when we had a rain that we'd been waiting for, we'd call it $1 million rain. Now, we called it $1 billion. That's B with
Yeah.
billion with a B, and so therefore, it's very timely. Right now, so we've got the rains. That means that the crops that weren't germinating, meaning they hadn't even begun to grow in the ground because it was just too dry, they can germinate and start peeking through. The rest of the crop that was up, it's going to keep going. So now the biggest challenge that farmers have, or biggest task, is looking after the crop. And they can look after the crop by taking care of bugs. We've had a lot of flea beetles in canola, and so you have to apply crop product protection products for that. And weed growth, because it was so dry, the weed growth changed a little bit, and so then they have to change strategies. And this isn't to belittle any farmers in any way, shape, or form, but a lot of the farmers, especially the bigger ones, they all use crop consultants, some kind of consultants to help them with this time of the year. And that's awesome. And so that's what we're doing now. The farmers are out there checking for bugs, they're checking for weeds, and they're getting ready and are, in some cases, are applying crop protection products. So those were some of the things that we talked about. And right now, and I even said that, yes, there comes a time in July when farmers can actually take off some time to go fishing. And I know we did always. The first week in 2 weeks in July was always camping time for us. And sure, you still had to look after the spraying and so forth. But then, of course, once end of July comes around, if farmers seeded spring cereals, meaning if they seeded those crops last fall and they came through good, they can start to harvest already at the end of July, and then the real harvest begins kind of like August the 1st.
Yeah, that's great. Always nice to go out and do some fishing for those farmers, especially. I mean, it's a grind all year round. I know with farming for sure, but yeah, just talking about just diving into drought a bit more. You talked about last time with me how you saw a major drought in the Red River Valley, west of Red River. How has that area been like with this amount of rain that we got in the past week?
For the most part, my brother has farmed probably 70 years. He's 84 and still farming. I checked with him, Jack. I says, his name is Jack. I says, what's it like now that it's rained? Well, he says they had enough rain for the moisture from the top to meet the moisture from the bottom. And so that means that all the crops can germinate, all the crops can grow, but there isn't a lot of subsoil moisture, so they're going to be looking after what they've got now. But things are, I would say, 98% better than they were a week ago. And that's so awesome because, we only have 1.5% to 2% of the population that are farmers, especially in Canada and the United States. And so they feed the world. And people tend to forget that. They feed the entire world, not just the Canadian farmers, but farmers around the world. In Canada, we export probably 65 to 70% of everything we grow to other countries. China buys a lot. Japan buys. The Europeans buy, and different countries buy from us. And so it's really vital that we get a good crop to get fresh produce for us and to also send it wherever people want to buy it.
You talked about how insects, there's been a lot of flea beetles on canola crops, stuff like that. Just could you speak about how big of an impact that insects, in your opinion, have on crops, especially this year with what we've been seeing?
Well, with the way the crops were before the rain, they were much more vulnerable. When you don't have nutrition, when you don't have moisture, you and I know if I don't drink water,
Yeah.
I become vulnerable. Crops become vulnerable. That's why the rain was also important. But I saw a plant yesterday from a farmer in Manitoba, and he had, this canola plant was covered in black flea beetles. So they have to get at it at the right time, and a lot of that spraying is done by aircraft. If you see the aircraft going, they're spraying for these bugs, and so that's why it can have a great impact. But we have very safe crop protection products that take out only those bugs that are on the plants. So when those bugs come, we spray, we kill them, we get rid of them in order for the crop to grow. So impact, yes. Spraying and controlling, yes. So we just have to do it at the right time.
That's great. That's awesome that there's different ways to get around it, like spraying crops. Yeah, that's awesome. Just we talked about canola last week, just how it's been selling, just the price of it. Is there any other crops that are going to, besides canola, that are going to rise in sales moving forward here in the next few months?
See, the big thing to remember, we as Manitoba farmers, Canadian farmers, we depend on the markets on the Chicago Board of Trade. There's also a Board of Trade in Minneapolis. That's for wheat. So we depend on those prices, what happens there. So right now, across the world, corn is king. Corn is the biggest crop in the United States. It's the biggest crop in the world. So that has a bearing on the other feed grains. But at the same time, the U.S. also is the biggest soybean grower. So the soybeans set the price in some cases for oil. And so yes, the prices are all higher than we had envisioned them to be at this time of year. And so it's really a weather market. From here on in, the prices will fluctuate depending how the crops do, and that's what we call a weather market. If the weather is good and things, the prices will come down a bit. If the weather is poor, then the prices go up because there'll be less of the crop. So we've got wheat, we've got soybeans, we've got corn, canola, and of course we have the other cereals like barley, oats, and various other crops. In Manitoba, believe it or not, we have people that grow market garden. We have vegetables, potatoes. You go drive along the Assiniboine River right up to Portage la Prairie. That's where farmers are actually growing vegetables. Peak of the market, you've heard that name. And so we're very fortunate in Manitoba to be able to grow what we can grow.
Yeah, that's great. Lots of great options for farmers to grow, which is awesome. I'm going to leave you with this question, Harry. Something that I want to start doing is getting a tip of the day from you because of just your expertise in the field with your years of being a farm journalist. What would be Harry Siemens' tip of the day for this week of June 14th, going all the way up until next week?
The tip of the day for farmers?
Yeah.
The farmers, I respect the farmers so much because they are a group of people that have a resilience. They are huge risk takers. So I just keep telling them, you know what? Keep looking forward. Keep looking up. I have a motto, and I'll share that motto with you briefly. And I made it for myself in 2000 or 1986. I've done speeches and seminars on it for 25 years. A positive mental attitude, to encourage and to serve, and I added a third one, and to inspire others will motivate me to do my best. And so my tip of the day, keep a positive attitude, stay realistic, and keep moving forward.
Some great words from the man himself, Harry Siemens, on this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba, joining us on the Farm Report. Harry, thank you so much for joining us on this Monday morning. Hope to talk to you soon again, maybe next week.
I hope so.